evening, everyone. My name is Chef Mike. I'm the executive chef at Evie's Restaurant, right behind Casemates at the entrance of the Landport Tunnel. I'm here at 101 in New Harbors Limited in their beautiful new modern kitchen. And we're gonna cook risotto today. Now, risotto is one of my passions. It can be an appetizer, it can be served as an entree, as an intermediate course, but it has to be done properly. And if it's done properly, it can be delicious. We're gonna start off with a stock. I do have a pet peeve. When I cook risotto, I want my risotto to be the same color as the product I'm cooking with. Today I'm working with pumpkin. There's lots of different kinds of pumpkins you can cook with. I'm choosing these two. And pumpkins inside are orange, so I want my risotto to be orange as well. If I was making a mushroom risotto, I'd want my mushroom risotto to be brown. When I go into a restaurant and I see the white risotto on top of the sauce that it's made with and it's not the same color, I know they're not doing it the way I like it done. I'm gonna start off with a stock. To make risotto, you need to have stock. So we're gonna start off making a bit of pumpkin stock. It's very simple. The mirepoix we worked with last week, if you tuned in, was carrots, celery, onions, and some garlic. That's basically an aromatic vegetable, mirepoix as it's known in French. And we're gonna add pumpkin to this to make it orange. Once we have a bright orange stock, we add that to the risotto will be orange too, then we're gonna finish it up and you're gonna be here to watch it happen. Here we go. Now, on the screen you'll see a list of ingredients on how to make your stock. But in the restaurant, of course, it's very expensive to waste vegetables, so I save all my scraps. Here we've just got some bits of leeks, some onion, a little bit of carrot, and pumpkin scrap. When I make a nice perfect dice of my pumpkin to garnish my plate, I end up with a lot of pumpkin scraps, so I'll throw them right into my stock to make a nice orange stock. Let's begin with 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Use whatever oil you like. If you have an inexpensive oil, or corn oil, it doesn't have to be olive. The flavor is not going to be predominant. At the end, you're going to taste and see pumpkin, so it's okay. I've got my hood on here today, but it's a little warm. I'm already smoking, so let's go right in with my vegetables. We're going to use a cooking technique today called sweating. When you don't want any color on your vegetables, you don't want them to get brown, you don't want to saute them, you want to sweat them. So what you do is, you get a little bit of fat in your pan, which is the olive oil, and you put a lid on. Lid on and low flame. Okay, leaving the lid on with the sweating inside the pan is going to return all the flavors into the pan and we won't lose any flavor. Let's move on. I'm going to bake a couple of pumpkins because when I serve my risotto, I like to use synonymous products. So I'm going to cut a couple of pumpkins, rub them with oil, cover them with tin foil, and get them in the oven to bake. We're going to actually serve the risotto flowing out of the pumpkin because that's going to look really nice. Let's start off with putting, as always, a wet towel under our cutting board to stop it from sliding around. Okay? 1 is fine. See that? Here's a small pumpkin, little baby one. It's gonna go right in half. And a larger pumpkin. This is really big. I'm not gonna fill, I mean, if you were having guests, you could use a really huge pumpkin and serve it on a huge platter and it would be great. This is gonna be an individual, maybe for 2 people size risotto. So I'm gonna cut this down. What I want is a base. If you look inside, we've got seeds. And there's a hollow area. That's where I'm gonna stuff my risotto and have it flowing out. But at the same time, I'm gonna want a lid just to be pretty. Ooh, did I just say pretty? Cowboys don't say pretty. Here's a lid. Okay, this is where scraps and dicing come in. I don't need all of this, okay? For my centerpiece, I've got my cup and I've got a lid. I'm gonna rub them with oil and get them in the oven. Piece of tin foil. You may not call it tin foil in this country. Aluminum. Either one is fine. Okay, a little olive oil. Again, feel free to use whatever olive oil you like. If you have a favorite brand, corn oil is fine. It really doesn't make a difference. There's gonna be so much flavor at the end that you could use any kind of oil that you have in the house. Don't go out and buy oil, especially for any of these dishes, okay? Wrap it up. Okay, 2 pumpkins going in the oven that we're going to serve our risotto in. The point is just to get them a little soft. If you have a grill at home, you can put them on the grill. But just when they start to get a little tender, they're ready and they're actually edible. You're gonna be able to scoop inside with a spoon and scoop out the risotto and the pumpkin. It's gonna be great, okay? My oven is preheated to 220 degrees Celsius. It should take about 20 to 25 minutes to get those nice and soft, which would be perfect time for everything else to come together. Okay, see this steam going right back into the pot? I'm not losing any of my flavor. It's going right back in. Once the vegetables get soft, I'm gonna add chicken stock. Just enough to cover the vegetables. And then I'm gonna let that cook for about another 15 minutes. You'll know when it's done because the stock will turn a bright orange. It's gonna have an orange color, thus the synonymous product. Orange pumpkin, orange stock, orange risotto, all right? It all goes together. Now, there is a way to cut round vegetables and fruit, whether it's a pineapple or an apple. You take the top off, you take the bottom off, and have a flat edge to work with. If you don't have a flat edge, things tend to roll around. It can be very dangerous. So we take a flat edge from the top, flat edge from the bottom, and now we can cut down. You see how easy that is? Okay? It's easier to peel vegetables and fruits when they're round if you give yourself a flat edge to work with. They won't roll away on you. So I'm going to now make a dice. Very simply, at Evie's restaurant, we like everything to be very pretty. A lot of garnishes going on, and a lot of dicing, a lot of perfect squares. At home, obviously, this isn't necessary. You just want to have nice chunks of pumpkin in your risotto for flavor and for visual. But I'm going to make perfect little squares today. Okay? In French, this would be called a lardon, no matter what it's made of, or a bâtonnet. So it's a bâtonnet or a lardon, okay? We're going to turn those into nice little squares. All right? Everyone see that? How easy and quick was that? If you work with a large round fruit, take the top and the bottom off. Trust me, it'll be easier to work with. I'm going to get a pot of water on, and I'm going to blanch these little cubes until they're just soft. I don't want them mushy, okay? What's called al dente in Italian. We are making an Italian dish, risotto, or arborio as it's known in Italy. We want al dente. So it's just a little bit firm, but not too soft. Don't forget, you must always season your water when you're cooking with vegetables. You want to season your water. You don't need pepper, but a little bit of salt's important. Okay, let's get a little pot of water on. High flame, medium flame, as long as you keep your eye on it, it's fine. Boils over or something, you don't want to make a mess. All right, I'm gonna put my dice to the side here. Magic. Okay, so I've got all this nice diced pumpkin, got my water going. Vegetables are now getting soft. Can you see that there? It's a big pot, it might be hard for you to see. Trust me, my vegetables are getting soft enough now that I can add my stock. I'm not going to give you a ratio. You want to put stock, chicken stock, just enough to cover the vegetables. You don't want to put too much in, and you don't want to put not enough. When you see that they're just starting to float, that's enough. Can we see the vegetables floating there? When they just start to float, that's enough. That's your ratio, just to cover, okay? Lid goes back on, that comes to a boil, and vegetables are tender. All my stock is going to be done. I'm going to strain it out. When I've got a nice bright orange stock, then it'll be time to start cooking the risotto. I've got some pumpkin puree. Whenever I have pumpkin scraps, I always try to figure out what I can use all my product for. I try to utilize everything in the restaurant and not throw anything away. So at Evie's, when I'm making pumpkin risotto, I end up with pumpkin puree. It's basically just the scraps that I've cooked in salted water, and I'm going to make pumpkin oil. Very easy thing to do. Here's a container. Use whatever container you happen to have at home. A little bit of a mess, so keep tidy here. I've got 1 cup of pumpkin puree. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of oil. I happen to know this is 1.5 cups of oil because I measured it earlier. This is called an immersion blender. A lot of different companies make them, and they go by the brand name. There's a Braun mixer, there's a Cuisinart mixer, but we just call it an immersion blender because it immerses. I'm gonna blend That's it, done. What we're making now is pumpkin oil. Totally unnecessary for you at home, but a necessity for me at work. I like to be very excessive and jazzy, as you see me on other episodes. Now what I've done is I've blended pumpkin puree and oil. I'm gonna let that drip through a coffee filter, and it's gonna give me a nice bright orange oil for a garnish later on. I'm gonna let that sit for a moment, and I'm gonna add a pinch of salt. My water is boiling. Let's go in with the dice. Diced pumpkin into the water. Pinch of salt needs to go in there. We season as we go. 2 pinches. Why not? Okay? Now, if my vegetables are soft, if they are not, we're gonna let them go for another couple of minutes now. The initial sweating of vegetables to get them soft was on a low flame. That's where the sweating came in. Now I want to bring it up to a boil with the stock so that I can strain out a nice orange stock, pumpkin stock. So we need to go up in temperature. When that comes to a boil and the vegetables are soft, we'll strain it out. Dice is working, vegetables are in, got pumpkins roasting inside. Let's start our risotto. To make risotto, you need a pan big enough to hold as much risotto as you're gonna make. I would say about half a cup per person with diced vegetables, in this case pumpkin, will be more than enough, okay? This pumpkin's gonna cook quickly, and I like using a large eye. The more surface area I cook with, the faster things will cook, and the more evenly it'll work out. So I'm gonna switch these pans as soon as that's done. It's only gonna take a minute or two. Okay, before I dice my onion, I'm gonna check and see if my pumpkin dice is ready. Let's pull out a spoon. Remember, you want them al dente. That's a little firm on the inside and a little soft on the outside. Oh, they're perfect. Let's strain them out. Get your strainer ready over your sink. Careful not to burn yourself. All right? Boom. Now, on the same nice large eye, I'm gonna get my pan ready for the risotto. First thing we're gonna do when making risotto is saute some onions. You don't want to saute them until they're brown. You want to keep your onions white so the color stays synonymous. So I'm going to saute my onions, a little bit of oil, add a little bit of butter, then we're going to add the risotto, okay? This is how we dice an onion. Top it and tail it, peel off a section. Often in an onion you'll find there's a root. The root in an onion will hold all the different layers together. So you want to get rid of the root, so when you're dicing, it'll come apart nice and easily. Can we see that at home? See that little root right there? That little piece needs to go. This will let all the petals come apart when we peel it. Insert your knife, in and out with the root. Very simple. Something so simple can make life so much easier later on. Now, a small dice. You need to go in at whatever size dice you want, and then come across in the other direction, okay? You're gonna insert sideways, and then go down. Now I have a perfect dice. Very simple, okay? Onion pieces from the ends. Instead of trying to sit there and make another little dice, which you can do at home, I'll throw that right into my stock. More flavor for our stock, more flavor for the risotto later on. I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of olive oil to my pan, and add my onion dice. As you'll notice, I ended up with nice little squares. Can we see that at home? Just nice little squares, nice and easy to work with. They'll look pretty later. Remember, you don't want any color on your onion. The onion's just for flavor. What we want to see is bright orange risotto at the end, okay? I'll just spread the onion out a little bit. This is where sweating comes in again. My stock's been going on long enough now that I should have a nice orange hue that would be color to my stock. So I'm going to pull that off and use the lid to go right over to the onion. Low flame, sweating. You want the onions to sweat. What's going to happen is the steam from the onions is going to return back into the pot. I'm going to strain my stock now because I can tell by the bright orange hue that it's ready. We'll check the seasoning later, but first off, the color to me is important because, like I said earlier, I want the risotto to have a synonymous color with the product I'm working with. Today it's pumpkin. Okay. You just want to strain off all the vegetables. You don't need to go into the fine chinois like we did last week. It's really not important. I'm going to show you on a plate. Maybe you can see without the plate. Can you see that bright orange color we've got? Probably should have done that over the sink. You see how bright orange that stock's become? That's now pumpkin stock. Now I've got my pumpkin stock, my onions are sweating, it's time to go with the risotto. Risotto is an Italian rice. It's an arborio rice known in Italy, and it can be very creamy and delicious if it's cooked properly. What you want to do is you want to saute your arborio rice in with the onions. Just until it starts to pick up a little bit of color. You don't want it to get dark brown. Just a tiny bit of color, that's when you know it's time to add your stock. You're going to add the stock and stir. As the stock becomes absorbed, we're going to continue to add more stock. What we're going to do is continue to add pumpkin stock to our risotto until it's done, which is going to be an al dente again, and you'll know by putting some in your mouth and tasting it that you're done. Onions nice and soft. Let's go with 2 cups of risotto today. 1, 2. The brand of risotto you use really isn't important. It's the cooking technique that's going to make the difference. So purchase whatever arborio risotto you have available to you at your local supermarket. At this point, we can turn the heat up a little bit because we are going to saute our rice. Okay. You can go on a high heat, high flame, as long as you keep your eye on it. You're going to need to continuously stir if you're on a high heat. The lower the heat, the less attention you really need to pay to it. While that's going, I'm going to start making my pumpkin oil. You saw me puree the oil and the pumpkin scraps together. And what I'm going to do today is use a coffee filter. I have equipment at home and in the restaurant that I use professionally, but I figured I'd try to show you a way that you can do it at home nice and easily. Coffee filter. You can use a glass if you want, a mug. Let's go right into any container will do. And a rubber band to fasten the filter around the edge. Okay, I happen to have a rubber band. Very simply secure your coffee filter to the top of any container. Like I said, a glass, a pint glass would work fine. And we're going to just pour a liberal amount in, set it off to the side, and let it drip. When that starts to drip through, we will have a nice pumpkin oil. We can use that for garnish later. Just let that sit off to the side. Now while my pumpkin oil is dripping, got my risotto starting to saute with the onions. When the onions and the risotto picked up a tiny bit of color, I'm going to add about half a cup of white wine. Any wine is fine, doesn't have to be expensive, whatever you happen to have in the house. If you're going to purchase wine for this, buy something inexpensive because it's going to be cooked down. You're really not going to taste the wine. There's just going to be a hint of effervescence later on. Okay? So we're going to use half a cup of wine to 2 cups of the risotto. As soon as I get a little bit of color, then we're going to add the pumpkin stock. It's going to make a bright orange risotto. At the very end, we'll add the diced pumpkin from earlier. Then we're going to put that inside the pumpkin, have it flowing out. I'm going to show you a garnish. It's going to be great. Okay? I'm going to get a spoon out now and give it a little stir. Okay, kids, don't do this at home. Did I lose any? 1. My record. All right, it's just starting to get a tiny bit of color, so we're going to add the white wine now. Half a cup. Until your pan is dry. You want that to reduce down. I love onions, I love wine. This is why I cook. This to me is heaven. Now, this is a very large surface pan, so my wine's going to reduce quickly, so I better have my stock ready to go, which I do. The trick to making a risotto is not in measuring the amount of stock you add to your rice. It's adding enough stock to cover the rice and let it cook down until you see a creaminess going. You'll see the starch released from the rice and it'll look creamy. And you continuously taste and add stock as you go. until it forms a texture that you like. Should be al dente, just a tiny bit chewy, okay? See that at home? You can see a dry pan. See how fast that reduced? It's gone. It's time to add some stock. Stock just to cover, okay? You don't want it floating around. Arborio rice needs to sit in the stock, not float, okay? It's gonna come to a boil. We can actually turn this down. It doesn't have to be in a rolling boil. I know I'm doing this right. Okay, I'm going down to about half heat, and we're gonna watch it cook. Let's check the oven now and see how our pumpkins are doing. Okay. After about 25-30 minutes, pumpkins should be soft to the touch. If you have delicate hands, you don't want to give your pumpkins a squeeze, you can go in with a toothpick like you did last week with the ribs. I'm gonna go ahead and give them a test with my hands. Okay. They're a little warm, but I can take it. Can you see this at home? See how it's pliable? It's soft, it's moving. That's done. It's servable, it's edible. You can, if you like, sprinkle brown sugar on them to make them a little sweeter. You can add salt and pepper at this stage if you like. It's really not necessary because the delicious risotto is gonna take all the flavor from the pumpkin at the same time in your mouth. It's gonna be a wonderful flavor. But if you have a sweet tooth, add some brown sugar to it now and put it back in the oven. Set this aside for 1 second. Can we see how dry the risotto's gotten? When the stock starts to reduce, it's time to add more stock. Again, just enough stock to cover the risotto. You don't want a huge pot of boiling liquid, just to cover. All right, give it a stir. No, clean spoon. If you have a wooden spoon at home, use a wooden spoon. If you have a favorite spoon, you don't want to scratch your pan, use whatever you feel comfortable with. Spatula, it really doesn't make a difference as long as you get a little bit of movement. You have to keep your eye on risotto. Can you see how it's starting to take on a yellow hue? It's going to be orange when we're done, but there will be a difference in color between the diced pumpkin and the rice. So you'll see the nice orange squares inside. It'll be really nice to look at. Nice visuals. As you've seen on my other food before, I like to go for the aesthetics. A little height, a little color, some pizzazz for you, okay? At Evie's Restaurant, we want height, we want pizzazz, and we want to see you there. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. Let's use this one. Okay. You scoop out your seeds. Seeds are edible. If you want to have an extra garnish, you can take the seeds, bring them to a boil in a pan, and then sprinkle a little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt, even a little bit of cinnamon if you like, and put them in the oven. When the seeds are dry, they look great as a garnish. Sprinkle the seeds around the plate, just adds to the pizzazz of the show we're doing here. For today, I'm going to get rid of the seeds. Okay? You can pull out a plate. And go with the pumpkin right on the plate. Oh, there's a seed left. Okay, so this is the beginning of our plate. Risotto's working nicely. Got my roasted pumpkin. It's time to add some more stock. Remember, as your risotto absorbs your liquid, you need to continuously add liquid. If you were making a red wine risotto or a mushroom risotto, you'd be adding red wine or mushroom stock. Again, in this case, we're making pumpkin risotto. We want to keep our products synonymous because I want the color, okay? Now, I've got my diced pumpkin, which I'm going to add at the very end, and I've got the pumpkin oil dripping. I've pre-made some pumpkin oil at Evie's and actually transferred it into a squeeze bottle so I can make a little decoration on the plate for you. I'm gonna have some fresh herbs as a garnish. Chives today are gonna be one of my garnishes. As you can see, bright, vibrant, and green because I kept them in cold water in the fridge. All green herbs, cold water in the refrigerator will stay nice and vibrant. We don't need a lot, just a little bit. Okay, shake the water off. Today I'm going to use another shape again, which was that I used earlier, called a baton. A baton is basically just a length, okay? So I'm going to make some bâtonnets, in French it would be, of chives, okay? Do you see that at home? Chive bâtonnet. Sounds fancy, just a little chive length, okay? Got these. I'm gonna now add diced pumpkin to my risotto because it's starting to get a little soft. I've tested it. Now's the time to get a spatula out. Small spatula is fine. Just a little baby spatula is good. I'm gonna give it a fold. Do you remember when we did that J fold? We start at 12 o'clock and we fold gently. You don't wanna turn your pumpkin into mush, okay? Nice and easy. Can we see that at home? It's cooking nicely. It's time to add a little bit more stock. Remember, as your stock reduces and it's absorbed into the risotto, you need to add just enough to cover, but continually taste for both seasoning and for texture. When you've got to an al dente and it's just a little bit of a bite to it, that's when it's time to take it off, add some butter and serve. We're gonna grate fresh Parmesan cheese today. We've purchased Parmigiano Reggiano. It's the best there is, it's very expensive, but you can use any cheese that you like to melt into your risotto or whatever you'd like to put on your pasta. If you like mozzarella, go ahead and use it. Feel free to use whatever cheese you like. I prefer Parmigiano Reggiano. It's what I use at the restaurant, it's what I use at Evie's, it's what I use at home. I like the flavor. Pull out your cheese grater, just go right into your pot. We want that to melt in. It's gonna add to the creaminess. If you really are a cheese lover, add a lot of cheese. If you don't like cheese too much, just add a little bit. Okay? Where's my spatula? Give it a fold. Remember, we're gonna season and taste as we go, just with all other things we cook. It's time to add some fresh pepper. Just a few grinds should do it. When I add fresh pepper, I like to look and actually see the little black specks on the surface of what I'm cooking. That's how I tell how much to add. If I've got a nice distribution of my little black specks of pepper, I know I've added enough. It's just right. Okay, a couple of pinches of salt. I'm gonna stir and give it a taste. The J fold. Okay, continue with your J fold. We're gonna give it a taste, see how our texture is. Let's grab a spoon here. Don't want to contaminate my product, so I'm not gonna go back in with the same spoon. I have more spoons. Delicious flavor. It's almost there, it's still a little hard. So I'm gonna add some more stock. This should be the last round. When this stock's reduced, I'm gonna add some butter. I prefer whole butter. If you're health conscious and you wanna use margarine or some other product that'll still give a bit of a creamy texture, by all means, use whatever you have in the house. There's no need to go out and purchase specific ingredients. Other than the actual risotto or the pumpkin for pumpkin risotto, whatever you have at home is fine. Just use it, you'll be all right, okay? At this point, at home, you should also be able to see a creamy texture and smell the cheese melting in, the pumpkin, and see how it's bright orange. This is how I tell when I go to a restaurant if a risotto has been cooked to my specifications. Like I said earlier, if someone makes a mushroom risotto and they don't use a mushroom stock and they just cook it with mushrooms, you'll end up with white specks of the rice. You'll see the rice and be able to differentiate between the colors. I like my rice to be synonymously colored with the product I'm cooking with. In this case, pumpkin. So it's gonna be a bright orange pumpkin risotto or a dark brown mushroom risotto. If you see white specks of rice, it means it hasn't been cooked properly as far as I'm concerned. Okay, my liquid's reduced once more. I'm gonna add some butter now. This is where we're gonna get the creaminess from. The starch that's naturally reduced into the stock from the risotto and released would make it creamy enough for most people, but I'm gonna go that extra mile and add 2 tablespoons of butter because I want an extra creamy risotto. A little bit of J-fold action. Incorporate your butter. Can you see that at home? Again, you could serve this as an appetizer, as an entree. You could put it on a buffet. It's a very versatile product to work with. If you like rice, you like paella, for example, you'll like risotto. It's the Italian paella without the seafood. You could put seafood in if you wanted to. Sure, how about a lobster risotto? That would be delicious. Lobster stock, make it bright red, nice chunks of lobster meat coming out, serve it in a lobster shell. That would be fancy. I might have to do that one week. You come by Evie's restaurant, you may see lobster risotto on the menu soon. Okay, final taste. It's really hot and bubbly now. Oh, I can tell it's done just by looking at it. But at home, I want you to actually taste some. I know it's going to be hot. Take a cold spoon, let it cool down for a minute. Bite into your risotto. Like I keep saying, a little bit of firmness. Al dente is the term we're looking for, okay? All right. Let's put some into our cup here. Again, this is totally an extra move I've made here. You don't have to go this far with it. You don't have to have risotto flowing out of your pumpkin at home. But that looks nice, doesn't it? You getting hungry? Okay. I've got my lid. I tilt that off to the side. Make it pretty, which cowboys never say. Chive batons. And I've got my oil, which I made at Evie's earlier today. Just little drips, just a little extra pizzazz, a little carrot oil makes things orange, a little pumpkin oil. Now what do we do every week? We go into the magic cupboard, drum roll, brrr, synonymous product. I was working with Parmigiano Reggiano today, so I'm going to continue to work with Parmigiano Reggiano. I've made Parmesan tuiles, it's a little bit of a cone. I've got Parmesan corkscrews. Can we see that at home? Little Parmesan corkscrews? How fancy. Lean that right up to the side. Just little abstract pieces. Okay. And let's add a little bit more fresh herb. Let's get rid of my cutting board here. This is an Italian curdly parsley. I tend to use flat leaf parsley a lot in the restaurant. It's easier to chop. But for an Italian dish, as an arborio risotto, how about an Italian curly parsley, okay? Just stick that right in my cone, and I'm done. How pretty is that? We've got pumpkin risotto, we've got Parmesan tuiles, Parmesan twisties, we got some batons. It's ready to eat. Join us next week on GBC. We're cooking up cowboy style. Be here.